This video lesson is how to read a poll. Today, we will learn the basics of understanding poll data. Our example is from a website called realclearpolitics.com. This website gathers information from all sorts of political sources, websites, and news agencies and publishes it in one location, which is easy to read. This particular poll is from the 2014 uh, governor's race in the state of Illinois. When we look at a poll, there's a couple things that we want to look at. First, we want to see who conducted the poll. Usually different news organizations and political groups will conduct a poll. It's important to know these things because there's a chance for bias. For example, an internal poll done by one of the candidates, such as Pat Quinn or challenger Bruce Rauner in this case, may be a little biased. Also, political parties often keep these internal polls to themselves so as not to give their opponents an advantage. So most of the time we see polls done by different news organizations or political groups such as Gallup in this case the Chicago Tribune, CBS, Chicago Sun-Times, and whatnot. Over here in this area is the date. That tells us when they conducted the poll, the surveys. We know it's usually done over a few days. That's why there's a range here of when the poll is conducted. It's important to know that because we also want to know what was going on that week. Was there a lot of pressure on the economy? Was there an international event? Anything in there could tell us about what happened. Could skew the poll data. So it's important to think about when the poll was conducted. The next one, sample, tells us how many people were spoken to during the poll. Most polling, as we know, are done by telephone. In this case, LV stands for likely voters. You can also see RV, which is registered voters. A likely voter means that the person who responded on the phone or to the poll is most likely going to vote in the upcoming election. Where a registered voter does not ask if they're planning on voting or not as long as they are eligible to vote. So it's important to know the difference, as that too may tell our poll different. So again, this tells us how many people we talked to. Next is my friend Mo. For you stats people, Mo stands for margin of error. Margin of error tells us how much the poll could possibly be off by. Generally speaking, if you look closely, you may notice that a smaller sample size has a larger margin of error than some of the other sample sizes, which are much bigger. So generally speaking, bigger sample sizes tend to have a little bit smaller margin of error. So when I look at the difference here, for example, in the Chicago Tribune one on the bottom, well, it says Rounder's up by 2. According to the spread here, the final thing, the spread is the difference between the two polls. Well, if I think about it, the margin of error says, well, it could really be, we could be off by up to 3.5 points. Well, if we're off by 3.5 points, Quinn could be up, not Rauner. So we would say this is too close to call. When we look at this one, it's the same thing. The margin of error is 3. There's 3. And Rauner is only up by 1. Again, too close to call. Here, Quinn is up by 4, and the margin of error is 3. So we can say here Quinn has a slight lead of 1 point, but again, that's not a lot. And given that the margin of error is only a range, that's still pretty darn close to call. But this is the only poll where Quinn is actually leading beyond the margin of error. To show you the difference, we're going to look at the Senate race from the same year, 2014. So here we go, we'll click on Senate, 2014. So we're going to go back here on my website. We're going to go back one more time. We're going to go to the Senate. And we're going to go to Dick Durbin. Here, the poll data clearly shows that Durbin is up by 10, 14, 13, 10 points. This is well beyond the margin of errors. So we say in the race of Dick Durbin versus Jim Overice that this is most likely a Democratic race because he's consistently leading by double digits beyond the margin of error. So that poll data can tell us again who's winning and by how much. And if you are a Republican donor or Republican National Committee, you know that putting money into this Senate race won't get you anywhere because consistently the Democrat is up by large money. So this, again, lesson taught us briefly how to understand poll data. Thank you for your attention and have an outstanding day.